Hi, I'm William,
And I'm Kat,
and that means this is Info on the Go.
answering questions you want to know.
So, Kat, did you know about thorium before we started the research for this episode?
I only knew about it because of chemistry class. I knew that it's on the periodic table.
Uh, you know, I knew about it kind of like you, but I really didn't know its full potential until we started doing the research for this. So, today we are talking about thorium versus uranium for nuclear power plants. So, thorium or uranium?
I guess first we need to define what each one is and the potential use. Then we can get into the impact on the environment.
Perfect. So we'll start with thorium. A thorium, Th, is a chemical element with an atomic number of 90. It is a weakly radioactive silvery metal that tarnishes to olive gray in air, forming thorium dioxide. Thorium is malleable, moderately soft, and has a high melting point. It is an antinide, with a +4 oxidation state and is reactive, capable of igniting when finally divided.
All thorium isotopes are unstable. The most stable thorium, 232, has a half life of 14.5 billion years and decays via alpha decay, forming the thorium decay series that ends at lead 208. Thorium is 3 times more abundant than uranium in Earth's crust and is mainly refined from monazite sands during rare earth element extraction.
I'm a fan of thorium already as it
Right.
ends in lead, but I mean, 14.5 billion years
It
as
takes
a
a while to get there.
yeah, we're looking at 30 billion years for decay.
Right.
Oh, wow. It was discovered in 1828 by Norwegian mineralogist Morten Threin Esmark and identified by Swedish chemist Johns Jacob Berzelius. Thorium was named after Thor, the Norse god of thunder. Yes, that Thor. And this is my new favorite chemist now because he had to be pretty cool to name this after Thor.
Right. Right.
Um, its uses were developed in the 19th century, and its radioactivity was recognized in the early 20th century. Many applications were later replaced due to radiation concerns.
Thorium is still used in TIG welding electrodes, high temperature crucibles, and strengthening magnesium. It also has been used in optics, gas mantles, and nuclear reactors. Thorium based reactors have been proposed as a uranium alternative, and the element has a niche uses in ocean science and scientific instruments.
I at one point in my life, I was a certified welder and I'm able to TIG weld. And I did not know there was thorium in TIG welding. I
Me
did not
neither.
know that.
I haven't
Okay.
done much welding, if I'm being honest.
Well, it was in my younger days, and it was for a very famous school bus company in my hometown.
Oh,
Yeah.
fancy.
And they're the ones who paid for my certification. So,
Oh, hey, that's a plus.
yeah, it didn't do me any good now, though, does it?
No, I reckon it does.
Uranium, U, is a chemical element with an atomic number 92. It is a dense silvery gray metal. It is an actinide series with 92 protons and electrons, including 6 valence electrons. Uranium is radioactive, primarily decaying by emitting alpha particles with isotope half-lives ranging from 159,000 years to 4.5 billion years. Man, that is a pretty sporadic swing there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you go from 159 to, oh, I guess maybe that's, yeah, okay. Its most common isotopes are uranium 238, over 99% of all natural uranium, and uranium 235 is a fissile isotope used in nuclear power and weapons.
Uranium is heavier than lead, but slightly lighter than gold or tungsten. It occurs naturally in small amounts in solid rock and water and is mined from minerals like uranite because uranium 235 is a scarce in natural uranium. It undergoes enrichment for nuclear use. Uranium 238 can also be converted into fissile plutonium 239 in reactors, and uranium 233 can be produced from thorium for potential nuclear applications.
Discovered in 1789 by Martin Heinrich Calthrop, and named after the planet Uranus. And I won't use the name that everybody gets a little giggle out.
Mhm.
Uranium's radioactivity was identified in 1896 by Henry Becquerel. It played a key role in the development of nuclear power and weapons, including Little Boy, the first nuclear weapon used in war. Enriched uranium powers reactors, while depleted uranium is used in armor and munitions.
And Little Boy, it was the first used in war. It was first used in, it was one of the ones dropped on Hiroshima, Japan on August 6th, 1945. Uranium's use in nuclear weapons led to a Cold War arms race. Disarmament programs now recycle weapon grade uranium into reactor fuel. Spent nuclear fuel, primarily uranium 238, poses environmental and health risks due to its radioactivity.
Mm, yeah. I think we should explain how nuclear reactors work. We are not getting into the Manhattan Project or the race for nuclear power, as those will be standalone shows in the future. Not to mention, it would just be too much to cover in this episode. So we're going to simplify how this works, as we really want to focus on the end results between uranium and thorium used in nuclear power plants.
Nuclear energy is the energy found within the nucleus or core of atoms, the tiny particles that make up every object in the universe. The bonds that hold atoms together contain enormous amounts of energy, which can be released to produce electricity through two methods: nuclear fission and nuclear fusion.
In nuclear fission, atoms are split apart, releasing the energy stored in their nuclei. This energy is converted into heat, which is used to boil water and produce steam. The steam turns large turbine blades that drive generators to produce electricity. Afterward, the steam is cooled, condensed back into water, and reused. Importantly, nuclear generated energy produces no carbon dioxide emissions. Remarkably, the fission of just zero point 0.5 kilograms or 1.1 pounds of uranium generates as much energy as burning 3,000 tons of coal.
That is a lot of coal. And can you imagine how many hours it would take to mine 3,000 tons?
Yeah, and then just think of people can say what they want to, but the air pollution that comes from
Hmm.
burning that much coal, like
Hmm.
that's crazy. But there's more pollution that comes with mining uranium versus thorium, and we're going to get into that. But I mean, each has its own negative as well as its own positive.
Right. Nuclear fusion, on the other hand, involves combining or fusing smaller atoms to form a larger one, releasing energy in the process. This is the same process that powers the sun.
When fission occurs in a power plant, it's called a nuclear reactor. Uranium is the most commonly used fuel in these reactors because its atoms are relatively easy to split. Uranium fuel is assembled into large metal rods, which from the reactor core, and are submerged in water to keep them cool. If the rods become too hot, they can melt, releasing radioactive material such as radiation is extremely hazardous to humans in the environment. Furthermore, because uranium is a non-renewable resource, it will eventually run out.
Currently, nuclear energy supplies about 10% of the world's electricity, powering homes, schools, businesses, and hospitals. However, nuclear energy has more destructive use, creating nuclear weapons such as the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. These bombs caused catastrophic loss of life, and the radioactive effects are still being felt today.
Yes. To limit the spread of nuclear weapons, only nations that are part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, established in 1970, are allowed to import nuclear fuels like uranium or plutonium. This treaty promotes the peaceful use of nuclear energy while restricting nuclear weapons development.
I'm glad
Ye-
that was enacted.
Yeah, for real. Well, but you got workaround. I mean, you got like
There's
North
loopholes to
Korea.
everything.
Yeah.
The safety of nuclear power remains a topic of debate. While it's an efficient and clean energy source, one small piece of uranium can produce as much electricity as 150 gallons of oil. It poses significant risks. Radioactive waste must be carefully stored to prevent environmental contamination, as it can remain hazardous for thousands of years. Most nuclear waste is stored underwater, though some less radioactive material is kept in specifically designed storage facilities.
Wow. Stored underwater. I mean, what if something was to leak?
I hope it's
And
in like some sort of pool at least, and not like a lake or an ocean or something, you know?
yeah, for real. Um, yeah, because but just think of the maintenance and the upkeep that you're gonna have on that. You're gonna put that off on somebody else because that's thousands of years. Uh, wow, that's just crazy.
Hmm.
Despite rigorous safety measures, nuclear accidents have occurred, such as the Chernobyl disaster in Ukraine in 1986 and the Fukushima incident in Japan in 2011. These events released radioactive gases into the environment, causing widespread harm to people, crops, and livestock. You know, we're gonna have to do a whole thing on Chernobyl and Fukushima maybe together. You know,
Right.
that happened in 1986.
And it's still a hot zone. Like you still can't go in there without a Geiger counter and in some places a suit.
Yeah. And the effects that it's having on the life, the life that is inside that area, it's crazy too. I mean, I was reading some studies about it, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds here. Um, but yeah, we definitely have to do one on Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Um, did we say what the byproducts of uranium nuclear power plants are?
Not sure, but it's plutonium 239, which is a highly radioactive isotope with a half life of 24,100 years, has significant and long lasting impacts on the environment due to its persistence and toxicity. Once released, it remains a contaminant in soils, water, and air for thousands of years, posing risks across generations. Plutonium 239 binds strongly to soil particles, making it difficult to remove and can leach into groundwater, spreading contamination and becoming a long term environmental pollutant.
Wow. In ecosystems, plutonium 239 can enter the food chain through plants and animals, accumulating in the bones, liver, and other tissue of living organisms over time. So, this bioaccumulation can disrupt entire ecosystems, particularly affecting species higher up the food chain, including humans. The isotope's radiation can cause genetic mutations in plants and animals, leading to reduced biodiversity, malformed offspring, and even species decline. Prolonged exposure also harms reproductive systems, further reducing populations of affected species. So
Mm.
you got that one animal that eats the plant, and then another animal eats that animal, so on and so forth until it gets up to us, to the human biosphere.
Right,
Or big fish eats little fish, same
right,
difference. So eventually it's gonna make that whole full circle.
right. Accidental releases of plutonium 239, such as those caused by nuclear facility accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima, have demonstrated its devastating environmental consequences. Improper disposal of nuclear waste containing plutonium 239 can also result in long term ecological damage, contaminating habitats and ecosystems for millennia.
Millennia.
That's wild.
That is crazy. And just think, we're not going to be around, so we got to make sure that that is something that the next generation is willing to take on. Like we're creating this now, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense.
Right, but thousands of years from now, they're still going to be feeling it.
Yeah, for yeah. Although the primary concern is environmental, the health risks posed to humans indirectly impact ecosystems. Efforts to contain or remediate plutonium contamination, while necessary, can disrupt natural habitats and further strain environmental resources. Managing plutonium 239 is particularly challenging due to its long half-life and extreme toxicity. Safe long-term storage in secure, shielded facilities is essential to prevent environmental exposure. But such measures are costly and have their own environmental impact. You're having to build something somewhere remotely, which takes up, that part of the ecosystem.
Right. Overall, plutonium 239 profoundly affects the environment through contamination, bioaccumulation, and genetic damage to living organisms. Its persistence makes it one of the most challenging pollutants to manage, necessitating strict precautions to minimize its release and mitigate its effects.
Unlike uranium-based nuclear fuel cycles, the fission of thorium does not produce plutonium 239, a key isotope used in nuclear weapons. Instead, the thorium fuel cycle begins with the transmutation of thorium 232 into uranium 233 through a series of decay processes. Uranium 233 then serves as the nuclear fuel in thorium reactors. Although the thorium cycle produces small amounts of plutonium, it is primarily the non-weaponizable isotope plutonium 238. While 233 uranium could theoretically be used in nuclear weapons, the presence of 232 thorium in the fuel mixture complicates and negates its weaponization potential.
Wow,
Yeah, so, that's why everybody wants to focus on uranium power plants because of the byproduct to be able to
is
create nuclear weapons.
weapons. Right.
Yeah.
Thorium's non weaponizable nature contributed to its limited development compared to uranium after World War II. Nations prioritized uranium reactors due to their dual purpose applications, including nuclear weapons. Research and development of thorium reactors were sidelined, and proponents of thorium technology often faced opposition or dismissal in favor of uranium's military advantages.
Now, I get why uranium was used in World War II because, there was a race to create a nuclear weapon before the Nazis or the Axis powers. I
Hmm.
understand that, but now that we know the differences and we can build better, we have the technology to build better nuclear power plants. I feel
Right.
like we should be leaning toward more thorium reactors. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thorium offers several advantages over uranium as a nuclear fuel. For one, thorium is approximately 3 times more abundant in the Earth's crust than uranium and does not require enrichment or reprocessing like uranium 235. It is estimated that thorium reserves in the United States alone could meet the country's current energy demands for another 1,000 years. Additionally, thorium ore contains a higher concentration of thorium compared to uranium content in its respective ore, making thorium mining more cost effective and environmentally sustainable. So, pound for pound, you get more out of thorium than you do uranium,
Right.
and you don't have all those extra steps you need.
Right. Exactly. In terms of safety, thorium reactors produce less nuclear waste than uranium reactors, and the waste they do produce is less hazardous. The radioactivity of thorium based nuclear waste diminishes to safe levels within a few hundred years, whereas uranium based waste remains dangerous for thousands of years. This reduces the cost and complexity of long term waste management.
Thorium's unique priorities also enhance reactor safety. Being a fertile material rather than a fissile one, thorium does not undergo fission on its own. Instead, it requires a radiation in a reactor to convert it into fissile material. This feature allows thorium reactors to be shut down quickly by simply turning off the neutron source, providing a crucial safety advantage. Thorium's potential as a safer, more abundant, and less weaponizable alternative to uranium highlights its promise for future nuclear energy development. The debate between thorium and uranium as a nuclear fuel revolves around their environmental impact, safety, abundance, and weaponizational potential. Hmm.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Uranium, the backbone of current nuclear power and weaponry, has proven effective but comes with significant challenges. Its fuel cycle produces dangerous byproducts like plutonium-239, contributing to long-term environmental contamination and posing risks to ecosystems and human health.
Additionally, uranium's reliance on enrichment and the extensive management required for its hazardous waste underscores its limitation as a sustainable energy source.
Thorium, on the other hand, offers a compelling alternative. Its abundance, cost-effective extraction, and reduced need for enrichment make it a more sustainable option. Goodness gracious!
It's okay. It's usually me.
Right.
Um, and this one had like all kind of stuff in it for me to be able to mess up on, right?
Hey, you did pretty good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, Furthermore, the thorium fuel cycle minimizes the production of long-lived radioactive waste and avoids generating weaponizable isotopes like plutonium-239.
Therium's inherent safety features, such as its and reliance on external neutron sources or fission, and its lower potential for catastrophic accidents, further enhance its appeal as a nuclear fuel. Despite these advantages, thorium's development has lagged due to historical priorities favoring uranium's dual purpose applications.
And, we want to make something to blow the whole world up.
Right. Let's be the whole problem everywhere.
Yeah. And then Chernobyl and Fukushima, like,
Mm,
those you have thorium power plant reactors where you could just it's not as simple as flipping a switch, but it's not as detailed as trying to shut one of those facilities down.
right.
However, as the global energy landscape evolves, the focus on sustainable, safe, and environmental friendly solutions positions thorium as a viable contender in the future of nuclear energy.
With advancements in reactor technology and growing concerns about uranium's environmental and geopolitical implications, thorium represents a promising path toward cleaner and safer nuclear power. I hope we get there.
I do too. I know that there is a thorium power reactor plant. I believe it's in Canada, and you know, I I think I think we'll start to see more of those come along because uranium um, is a very hard substance to mine, and then you have all these different processes where thorium might take just a little bit more to get there, but the end results and the byproducts are not nearly as dangerous as plutonium-239.
Right.
That's all I have, Kat.
Me too. If you'd like to support this podcast,
Click the support link in the show notes.
William and I want to thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Share with us your show ideas.
or ask us a question.
Subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
Email us at,
Info on the Go podcast at gmail.com.
that is a mouthful. Until next time.
Stay curious.